Thank you for making time for this broadcast. As I mentioned, today we're taking time to celebrate the women engineers amongst us, and this is both within the country and without. And remember, this is ahead of the International Women in Engineering Day, which is marked every year on the 23rd of June. And speaking of which, that question of the day to you is, what more needs to be done to recruit women in the engineering space? What more needs to be done to recruit women in the engineering space? You can speak to us. That hashtag is new normal. And of course, as always, remember, you can reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. But before we get to that interesting conversation, let's take a look at the impact of COVID-19 around the world. And this morning, those numbers stand at 179,548,206 confirmed cases. Out of that number, 164,245,552 have recovered, and 3,888,790 have succumbed to COVID-19. In the country, well, that number stands at 179,293 confirmed cases. Out of that number, 122,965 have recovered, and unfortunately, we have lost 3,461 people within the boundaries of Kenya. Well, remember, those COVID-19 prevention protocols stay true, and that is social distance. Wash your hands regularly with soap and water. If you do not have access to that, you can use that alcohol-based sanitizer. And as always, social distance, or what we call physical distancing. To some of the stories making headlines this morning, and 5 people were rescued alive when a retaining wall under construction near the Kangemi Bridge collapsed last evening. This is according to the Dagoretti police. Rescue efforts have been ongoing since early last evening, with police and emergency responders struggling to control the crowds gathered and reach the victims on time. Leila Mohammed with our report.
Bulldozers dug through the red soil at the scene of the collapse Monday evening as emergency responders fought with time to rescue those buried under the soil in a horrific Monday evening accident. Those who witnessed gave troubling accounts of the events that led to the tragedy.
Saizi mambo ya kuangalia kama kunaweza kuwa na mtu mwingine bado inaendelea. Bado tuko na time ya families kujua nani ameenda nyumbani, nani hajapatikana.
The Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, which is undertaking works on the road, says 3 people were rescued alive, with one of them being rushed to hospital with serious injuries. But police and those on the ground give differing figures.
Wakati hiyo tukio, wamama 5 ndio wameweza kuaffectiwa as per now what we can ascertain. Mmoja amepelekwa St. Peter's ambayo ilikuwa in critical condition, hao wengine wameweza kupelekwa PCA Kikuyu Hospital. So kitu tungetaka kusema, hata serikali iweze kupanga jinsi ambayo hao mama wameweza kupelekwa hospitali, watasaidika kwa njia gani.
According to KENHA, reinforcement works on the retaining wall near the Kangemi Bridge were underway, but the cut soil on the back collapsed and the wall caved in on traders who were selling their wares nearby.
Watu wakitolewa kwa barabara hawapewi pande nyingine. Tuko na sita ya kutolewa kwa barabara na hatupewi hadi tunaenda kufanyia biashara. Ndio sababu hii yote mkosi yote hii imefanyika. Sasa kwa hivyo serikali inatakikana relocate what the proper place where they can do their business.
The incident caused a huge traffic jam during rush hour as motorists moving from the city centre into Westlands and from Kangemi towards the CBD got caught in the chaos. Rescue operations have been ongoing since the early evening incident occurred, with police and other emergency and rescue agencies helping out to comb through the rubble just to ascertain that everyone made it out safely. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
Beyond the borders now, with voting taking place in March of Ethiopia, no election date has yet been set for the Tigray region. Now, the country votes in a closely watched election taking place as famine grips the war-torn Tigray region and doubts linger about the credibility of a twice-delayed vote. The government has disputed information by UN agencies that 100 or rather 350,000 people are facing famine conditions. Tigray has 38 seats in in the national parliament, but residents in the capital, Mekelle, are more concerned with finding fuel and other essential supplies. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is facing voters for the first time since coming to power in 2018, and the ruling Prosperity Party is a firm favorite to win a majority and form the next government. Elsewhere, American star Angelina Jolie visited Guinea refugee camp in Burkina Faso in celebration of the World Refugee Day Monday. Jolie expressed concern over the global state of displacement and the need to find solutions to enable refugees return home. The Guinea refugee camp is sheltering thousands of Malians who have fled jihadist violence in the region. Following the March attack last year, about 9,000 locals were forced to flee to refugee camps. As the security situation deteriorated, an attack on the northeast village of Solhan on June the 4th to the 5th had at least 132 people killed by gunmen.
1% of humanity, and the numbers are rising. We have to wake up to the track we are on globally, with so many conflicts raging and the very real possibility that climate change will force tens, if not hundreds of millions of people to have to leave their homes in the future, with no possibility of return. So it is not that we are at a breaking point, we are broken.
Now, the World Health Organization on Saturday officially announced the end of Guinea's second Ebola outbreak, which was declared in February and claimed 12 lives. At least 16 confirmed cases and 7 probable infections, according to the WHO figures, and the limited size of the latest flare-up has been credited to experience from the 2013 to 2016 epidemic, which killed more than 11,300 people, mostly in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. International rules meant that Guinea had to wait 42 days, twice the virus incubation period, without a new case before declaring the epidemic over. That wait was over on Friday, weeks after the last person was declared cured on May the 8th, according to a senior health ministry official. Back home, and Eunice Omolo spoke to Barbara Neal, country president of AstraZeneca Vaccine Africa Cluster, who explained the challenges faced so far on the shortage of COVID-19 vaccines.
7 million doses that has been supplied to low and middle income countries, with 38 countries in Africa benefiting from the AstraZeneca vaccine. Obviously, due to the devastating second wave that has happened in India, we have seen that supply into Africa has reached a critical point. And this is something that we are working with our partners on. And we stand very much united with what the WHO has said, that the COVAX and the Vaccine Alliance now need to work harder than ever together with the Ministries of Health, like what we are doing here in Kenya, for the countries that need supplies in Africa, as well as the countries that have enough supplies to donate. So if we look at the Serum Institute of India, which has been a trusted partner for Africa for vaccine supply over many decades, is because of the devastating second wave that's happening in India at the moment, that at the moment the exports are not happening. But they have given their commitment that as soon as the situation in India improves, that the exports will happen again. So what we are doing at the moment is, because the situation is quite critical right now in Africa, is that we are now at the moment working very closely with the countries that have high quantities of vaccines that they can donate, in a way to serve as a bridging for the situation that we currently have. That we are seeing more and more countries stepping forward to make donations. And we see that this mechanism is already working. We have seen donations going into geographies such as Rwanda, we've seen Senegal, Lesotho, Burkina Faso, so in many countries, and also here in Kenya. We know that the Danish government has committed to donating doses to Kenya, and we want to commend the Danish government for taking that step. And I think also to the Minister of Health here in Kenya, as well as the head, a combination of private companies as well as governments have pledged an additional $2.4 billion to COVAX. So this means that COVAX now have 1.8 billion fully funded doses that they can supply into low-income countries during 2021 and into 2022. And we need to now work together to ensure that countries such as Kenya and other African nations get the vaccines that they need. The data would clearly suggest that if you get the first dose of AstraZeneca, you should get a second dose of AstraZeneca. However, there are a lot of ongoing studies looking at vaccine mix at the moment, and we should probably have the evidence around that, I would say, in the next couple of months. I feel really confident that we can ensure that the right level of doses will become available.
Well, speaking of donations, the latest is that last night Kenya got a shot in the arm from the Danish government after receiving a second batch of doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine from Denmark, and definitely over 350,000 doses in the country changes the landscape in as far as who and where these vaccinations will be happening. So this is good news, and more details will be coming from the Ministry of Health later on in the day to give more information on how this will be rolled out. Now back to our conversation of the day, and something that definitely puts us right into it. Years ago, Gladys Gachanja was pursuing her early education in Olenguruone with very little resources. Now going to school barefoot was the norm, and the only language she spoke fluently till she joined Form 1 was her mother tongue. Now today, Gladys is a Rhodes Scholar and has a PhD in Aerospace Engineering from the University of Oxford. Apart from being named as one of Business Daily's top 40 under 40 women in 2018, she also made it to the list of the top 10 rising stars in the United Kingdom. I caught up with her in Olenguruone, and this is her journey to engineering.
My name is Gladys Gachanja. 27 years old, currently doing PhD at University of Oxford. I'm doing PhD in Aerospace Engineering. This is my 4th year. I'm supposed to finish before the end of the year. This is Olenguruone, and this is where I was born and raised. I studied in local primary school here, and went to Kericho for high school, went to Jikwat for university. I did my primary school from 1997 to 2004 at Lelebe Primary School, a small school. Just local primary school. We were going to school barefoot all the time. It was normal. Teachers could not even converse in English themselves. So we used to be taught in Kalenjin, which was easy. We could understand. But the problem was during exams, then you struggled to read and understand. Because of that, I scored 298. I was number 3 overall, I think, if I'm not wrong. But I was definitely the best girl in the school. But now the problem was joining high school, considering that in 2004, the best student had 472. Many schools rejected me, and so when I got to Mercy, in as much as Mercy Girls is not a big school, for me that was my alliance. And so being grateful for that, that motivated me and made me not to lose hope and be persistent. So when napenda kuambia students, were dream. Growing up, we didn't have a lot of students, especially girls who went past high school. Even from my primary school, I think we were only 2 or 3 who went to secondary school and then proceeded to colleges and uni. And so coming from that small kind of beginnings where there is no strong motivation, especially in terms of role models, it was a struggle. And so having made it this far and coming back to see the people who I was around with all the time growing up, I'm just so happy to see them. 2 of my brothers I follow closely, Gilbert and Hilary. When they went to college, Gilbert went to Kisumu Polytechnic, Hilary went to Mombasa Poly. Gilbert did mechanical, Hilary did civil. And so a lot of talks around the house were engineering, physics and maths, and they would be debating and competing to fix things and all that. And so growing up in such kind of environment, following 2 brothers who pursued engineering, and then my dad, who was working in the engineering department in Kenya Pipeline, was an introduction to engineering, I must say. So Ilu is a Kalenjin word for shine, Ilu. The reason why I co-founded Ilu with two of my colleagues from campus is we wanted to go back to where we come from. And all of us, we come from small beginnings, from villages. And so when we look back at where we started and just the improvement and the journey we've had, we thought, hey, we can do something. We can at least go back and tell those kids they can actually make it. Like there is, even with the limited resources and lack of role models. So the plan was we approach teachers that I knew and asked them to give us a list of two girls actually who were doing well, but they were struggling financially. Parents would just work hard to get fees and then we'll sort anything else, non-fees.
Mtoto alikuwa anaenda shule, alikuwa ananitumanishia pesa ya shopping, ya transport. Saa tulikuwa na shida kabisa.
Kusomesha wasichana ni mzuri. Yule hata kiolewa bado anakumbuka nyumbani.
Making it to Kenya's top 40 under 40 women. It was everything really. It was, at the moment, it's my highest achievement in terms of awards or recognition. So I'm just thinking at 27 and I made it to the list. It's more than I could ask for. It motivates me and it confirms that you can, the sky is the limit, or beyond the sky is the limit. Yeah.
Well, it has been 2 years now, and Gladys Chepkirui finished her PhD, and now she's Dr. Gladys Chepkirui Ngetich. She is an aerospace engineer, and this morning she joins us from Massachusetts in the U.S. As you can see her, she is part of a panel. As I said this morning, we are celebrating Women in Engineering ahead of the International Women in Engineering Day, which is marked on the 23rd of June. Let me introduce the other celebrities and heroes this morning, and that is Engineer Margaret Ogai, who is the CEO Engineers Board of Kenya, joining me in studio. In the other studio we have Engineer Christine Ogut, who is the Chair Women Engineers Chapter at the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Next to her, Martha Chaltu, who is a graduate engineer, and of course joining us virtually, Makena Ireri, who is a civil engineer. Ladies, we salute you even as we mark the International Women in Engineering Day, and this is actually a day put aside to raise the profile of women in engineering and focus attention on the amazing career opportunities available to girls in this exciting industry. So again, ladies, we salute you. And to start off with Engineer Ogai, you have been in this space for a while now. How far have we come in as far as women in this space?
Oh, thank you so much, Gladys, and thank you for this forum. I think as women engineers, we are very, very, happy to be here and to tell our stories, which are unique. For me, personally, I graduated in 1990 from the University of Nairobi, and I have been working for various companies and started in the private sector, I think about 10 years, and then I moved to the public space. And it has been a good journey, very rewarding. Of course, it has its challenges. I think the biggest of which is basically having very few female role models ahead for you, so that you're really charting your own journey as you go along. But it's been very rewarding, and I really thank God, because you combine the best of what you have as my interest in maths and engineering, and generally also contributing to society. And as a career, I think I can't complain. It has raised my family for me, so I really do thank.
All right, so you got into this space over 30 years ago, close to 30 years ago, and the numbers of women have gradually kept going up. How are we doing?
Yes, the numbers have gone up. I can tell you, when I started working, I think I only knew 1 or 2 other lady engineers ahead of me. And today, I think the numbers have grown. We are looking at about 2,000 graduate engineers who've graduated and are registered with the Engineers Board of Kenya. We have another just 200 or so, 250 who are professional engineers. That is registered and can use the name engineer. And so the numbers are not so good, because we are looking at professional engineers. We are looking at 7% of the total population of about 2,600 or so engineers in the country. So both for the you know, the whole population of engineers, we are still few, but it's even more worrying when you look at the numbers for the women engineers. We are really way below the numbers that would be for us to be felt and to have an impact in society.
Yeah. All right. Let me bring in Engineer Christina Good, who is the chair of the Women Engineers Chapter at the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. How long have you been in this space?
Thank you, Gladys. I have been the chair of the Women Engineers Chapter since last year. And Engineer Ogai was my year mate at the University of Nairobi in a class where we were 10 women engineers in a class of around 140 students, civil engineers. So my journey has been very interesting. It has had its ups and downs. And as a woman, I want to encourage all those who want to be engineers that we can always make a difference in our lives. We can also make a difference in other people's lives, and engineering is the way to go. And where women have been put in leadership, they have made a difference. So as the chair of Women Engineers Chapter, we have a vision where we want to promote the women to be nurtured to grow in leadership and to thrive professionally. So the figures are going up, but a lot still needs to be done. There is so much we need to do. In this era of COVID, we really need to encourage the girl child. We need to use technology to ensure that we get as many more women in engineering as possible, not just only women engineers, but also women engineering technicians. Thank you.
All right. And definitely we'll talk more about the impact you speak of in detail later on. Let's bring in the young blood into this. I'll start off with Makena Ireri, who is a civil engineer. How did you end up in this space?
Thanks so much for having me, Gladys. So I guess my love of engineering starts like so many other people, with a love of math, with a love of physics, with a love of tinkering with things. And beyond that, a little bit of exposure. I think that was really interesting for me, because when I was starting out, I really wasn't clear about which path I wanted to take. You know, we have the 4 careers that are usually kind of advised to you in high school in Kenya, but engineering wasn't really pushed as hard. But I knew that because of the subjects I liked, that could be a potential. But the exposure was really important. So, for example, my mother introduced me to aeronautical engineering, and I'm so glad to have another one on the panel here. And by talking to him, I understood that maybe that's not a path I wanted to follow. I had an uncle who was an electrical engineer, and so I kind of got a gist of what the job was like, and that exposure really made me feel like engineering could be something that would be possible for me. So I kind of went to university. I went to university in Manchester, in the UK, and went through a career that option to switch halfway when I realized actually that's also not something I wanted. So I think this kind of exposure and slowly being allowed to change your mind and explore different things was really crucial for me in where I ended up. And I'm not a practicing engineer like all my colleagues here. Like I practiced for 5 years, and then I switched careers into something more where I use my engineering knowledge, but I'm not really practicing the discipline that I studied in university.
Okay, and ladies, you'll be elaborating to us who are laymen in as far as what you mean by practicing and the converse in a moment. Let's bring in Gladys into this one. We just had your life story about how you were exposed to engineering, and I must say this is so inspiring. You are currently in the Massachusetts carrying the name or the title doctor. How does it feel?
It feels great. It's been a journey, and watching the video that we made 2019, it's been a journey.
Okay, when you think about that bare feet child going to school when you were so young and with such a huge dream, and now you're living it out, what comes to mind in as far as women in this space?
I can only think of what Lupita said, that no matter where you're from, your dreams are valid. And I try to add some flavor and say your bold dreams are valid. Because walking bare feet to Lelaibe Primary School, that time, that was 1997, I think, to 2004. If someone told me I would be here, yeah, I would not believe it. So for any girl, any woman out there who is interested and passionate about engineering, it's totally possible. It can be challenging because we are minority in engineering, but it's totally possible. It's a bold dream, but you can definitely get there.
All right. I had even some of my colleagues asking, who is an aerospace engineer? What do they do? Please tell them.
Ooh, we may need a whole class for this, but in summary, aerospace is a big umbrella that inside it, we have aeronautical engineers, and then we have aeronautical engineering, and then we have astronautical engineering. So when you talk of astronautical engineering, you're talking of engineers who are designing, researching, building spacecrafts that fly above aircraft altitude. Spacecrafts going to Mars and Moon, you would call them astronautical. And that's where the name astronaut comes from, because you're flying above where the altitude where aircrafts normally fly in. And all the other engineers who research, design, all that, spacecrafts that are flying in the aircraft altitude and below, you can call us aeronautical engineers. But aerospace is a big umbrella.
Now we have more information on what it is you do. Again, we celebrate you. And even to younger blood, we have Martha Chaltu, who is a graduate engineer. Martha, when did you graduate into engineering?
Gladys, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Chaltu Martha, as you've said, and I cleared my electrical and engineering BSc in 2018.
Okay, and how was that journey? How did you get introduced into this space?
Yeah, so it's quite an interesting journey, actually. I remember the first time I was told I'm gotten the electrical engineering, I'll be able to join JQuat. I told my dad, and he knows I'm usually I'm a bit hyper at times, so he was like, wow, utachoma watu na stima. I remember him saying that. But 5 years down the line, he was the person that held my hand the most. He was the person that believed in me even at my lowest. So engineering wasn't easy, I'll tell you that for sure. I remember the first 3 years of engineering, you know, you even start asking yourself, am I as smart as I was? Did I really get that A? Or where did that brain go to? But engineering really challenges you. It brings you to a place where you challenge yourself even. You find a way it makes you to bring out the best in yourself, and it shows you the biggest challenge you'll have, because we get into the market and you'll find many people. There's a conference we were at, and I remember this HR lady saying the way they like engineers, because at the end of the day it makes you be able to cope with the challenge of having to have such exhausting and what is this? Let me look for this word. It makes you find the best way to bring out the best in yourself. For by the time you're finished with this course, you're able to handle whichever challenge comes to your way. So it's been a journey that I can tell you was not easy, but was worth all the work that we put in.
All right, the smile on your face says it all. And again, we celebrate you this morning, and to see all the enthusiasm behind it, I'm sure is something that will encourage even others that are thinking to get into this space. And Engineer Guy, when you just listen to the panel, and it has, you know, an array of different age groups into this, all so passionate about why and how they got into this space, let us know what it takes to be an engineer.
Oh, thank you. I think I'll start at high school. The choices you make, you must have mathematics, you must be fairly good in mathematics, physics, and you must also have languages. I think then you select, then when you do your selection at university, of course you will qualify if you have, I think, a C+ and above. That is the minimum. and you get into an accredited course, because you also have to get into a course that is recognized by the Engineers Board of Kenya and the Commission or University of Education. And when you take that course, they're usually 5 years in Kenya today. You will graduate, and from there you then become what we call a graduate engineer, like Martha. And it takes between a journey of about 3 to 5 years, actually 3 to 8 years or so, practicing that knowledge that you have been taught, designing, building structures, processes and systems, depending on which engineering discipline you've taken. And after that, you will come for an examination at the Engineers Board of Kenya, and you will then get registered as a professional engineer. With that, you get a license to be able to practice your engineering independently. As a graduate engineer, you will be involved in the whole process of designing or building, but you will have to do under the supervision of a professional engineer. So that is a journey. It normally takes, I think on average, it does take about 6 to 8 years or so. And I think the unfortunate thing, let me bring this up, why it is a bit unique for now for the women engineers. At that time you've graduated, you are then also at the stage when most of us do get married and start childbearing. So there's now this mix. You are under training. You've got to go to probably remote sites, yes? And here you are probably trying to raise a young family. And that is a struggle that we find with a lot of our young graduate engineers, that they get to that space and they're having to make those very difficult choices. So we've tried to encourage them, yes, because we don't want to lose. You can imagine you're already very few. And then we are starting to lose 1 or 2 of those very brilliant minds and the uniqueness that they bring into the perspectives they bring as an engineer. So it has been something that we have come up. I think Engineer Christine is leading in trying to mentor, encourage, keep us together, and also make things easier, including having things like, how do the daycare for the young children. But I think in terms of, let me go back to when you're under training in the university, you do the same exam, exactly the same exam as your male counterparts. Yeah. When you did your Form 4. So you're fully capable, but life happens.
And the roles that society bestows on you take over. And speaking of which, McKenna, are these some of the factors that made you think, okay, fine, let me just switch from practicing to doing something else?
For me, some of them played a role, but not exactly as Engineer Guy has put them. So I was practicing civil engineering, building structures for nuclear energy sites in the UK. And the whole reason actually I got into engineering was because I was really passionate about making a difference, doing something that enables change, that enables people's lives to be better. And I think a lot of us getting into the sector want to shape the world to make people's lives better. And so as I was doing this, practicing engineering in this very niche sector, I wasn't getting kind of the job satisfaction I wanted. I wasn't feeling like I was getting the impact that I had envisioned when I started my engineering career and when I got into university. And so that mainly for me was a catalyst to switch my roles. And so I got the opportunity to come back home and do some work with an organization that was promoting off-grid energy, solar energy in remote places. And that was so exciting. I was actually doing something with my technical knowledge that was really enabling people's lives, making people's lives better. And that just became too seductive to go back to kind of, designing structures. Although I did enjoy it, I found that this new path was just so much more interesting to me. So for me, the catalyst was more kind of the joy I get from kind of the technical work having a real impact rather than the life circumstances. Not to say that the life circumstances weren't also slightly difficult. I mean, Engineer Guy has really mentioned some interesting things about the way we experience engineering as women is so different from the men. It's so different, the way you turn up to site and the way you're perceived and the way that kind of engineering is structured really still with a male view that sometimes sort of discourages you and makes you question whether you're in the right space. And so you kind of have to also have that fortitude So I'd say I haven't yet encountered some of the life challenges that Engineer Guy has spoken about, but really that motivation for impact was my catalyst for changing my direction.
Gladys, do you resonate with McKenna?
Absolutely.
What's your experience?
Oh, it's so depending on, so it needs a lot of patience and what you learn. So for me, because I've not worked in an industry for long, apart from the attachments. So most of my engineering practices, putting what I learned in theory to experience, happened when I was doing my PhD. And yeah, so whatever you learn in class can be different from what happens in the field.
And now where you're at, what exactly are you doing? And is it now putting you in a space where you can actually practice?
Oh yeah, certainly. So I've been mostly in school, and what I've done a lot is research. So less of the field work and more of research in the lab. So what I do at the moment is, so I started from mechanical engineering, and then I got interested in a field of mechanical engineering called thermofluids. And when I went to the UK, that's what I did for my PhD, thermofluids related project. And then at the moment, still thermofluids related.
Gladys, let me stop you at that point. It looks like your computer is about to die on you. Please get yourself a charger before we lose it.
Sorry about that.
No worries. We'll get back to you in a moment. And Engineer Ogut, do you resonate? Do you see a lot of the young ones, especially now that Gladys and McKenna have given the experience, struggle at some point to hang on to what it is they want to do or even further the training?
Yes. Thank you, Gladys. What they have said is the real reality in this country. And as we look at the young, we need to encourage them. And I just want to take this opportunity to share some statistics so that those listening out there, our leaders, our teachers, our mentors, can really think on how they can encourage the girl child from a very young age to take interest in engineering. And these are the figures we currently have in this country. Representation of women engineers in the council. This is an elective position. Out of the 17 council members, we have 7 women engineers who are voted in. This is the highest representation of women in engineering in this country. Let us look at other areas. Representation of women engineers in public universities in Kenya that offer engineering, that is at the level of university management. You'll find that the number of women are 17 out of 65, but none are engineers. When we look at representation of women engineers in the universities, again, at the council level, the university council level, you'll find that the council members are 64, 22 are women, but none are women engineers. Then you go ahead and look at in government parastatals in senior management. I work for the government. I am in senior management. You'll find that representation, we have 292 people in senior management, 75 are women, but women engineers are 6, and these are parastatals that offer women, that offer engineering. Then we look at in the boards, again, in the boards that of parastatals that are offering engineering services, you find that the board members are 356. Out of it, 81 are women, and again, 6 are women engineers who are in the boards. So you find that that current situation really disheartens me. I feel like we are not being given the support we require. We are not being recognized, yet all those women you see in those different positions make a difference wherever they are. So I want to encourage that from the young age, let us mold the young girls to actually have an interest in mathematics. And as they grow on, then they take the science subjects, because that is what leads you to be an engineer. At the university, look at the case of Dr. Yetich. Look at the marks she scored. She was not a top-notch, student, but where is she today? Because she worked hard, she had a vision, she was encouraged. This is what she is today. She's a whole PhD holder in engineering. Thank you, Gladys.
We hear you and we hear your frustration. And before we hear from the youngest amongst us, because she's listening to all of you, and I'm sure she's hoping that she can get some hope to hang in there. Engineer Oga, you've been in this for a while, and now the CEO of the Engineers Board of Kenya. How did you get this far then?
I think, like has been said by all of them, and I'd like to really thank all the, all our panelists. I think you have to have also self-belief, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. The whole journey will be tough because we have, I think once you're sure the engineering that we were trained on, and that you were able to keep it at the top with we didn't have any special, as I said, any special exams when we were in college. We did the exams together with the gentlemen, yet we were just, as she said, 10 out of 120. So you start getting, you develop a self-confidence. You also get a very good support system. You do have people who believe in you and who support you, even when you start seeing like it's getting dark. 30 years is not a short period. Yes. And it's very possible many of us along the lines either going to other business interests, which is okay. But I think part of the reason we also do hang on is that there's so much policies and interventions on that engineering can make a difference in citizens' lives. And we need that the perspective of an engineer who also happens to be a woman. So for me, I think it's been a lot of encouragement. At the same time, I must say, also a lot of discouragement. I can tell you, I just, I think 2 weeks ago, I was in the field. And surprisingly, as I met, let me say, an engineer in the field. And he congratulated me for, getting to be the CEO. Graciously, I was quite happy. Then he went on to say that, but there's a lot of doubt in the market, how she will do it. And, I couldn't understand now why. After 30 years, I am a professional engineer. Why would we be having these doubts? I didn't want to, but I started feeling that possibly it is these barriers we've had, these naysayers all along. And I think that's what I would like to encourage the women who are doing engineering, the girls who are thinking of doing engineering. You're going to need to have inner strength to always listen to yourself and have that confidence and enjoy it. Because when you're told engineering is hard, I say as an alternative to what? Because you look at somebody who didn't go to school, who possibly did not, has not done engineering, or doesn't have a very good career, doesn't have good income. That's a more difficult life. I mean, we go to very decent places to do our work, to exercise our interests as an engineer. So for me, I think it's just been a journey of knowing that you have to be on the space. I enjoy the job, and I also fully respect my career because it provides for my family. That, I think, drives me. And I have good mentors along the way.
And we'll talk more about mentorship in a moment. Just clarify for us, are you the first EBK CEO female?
Yes, I think as a registrar, yes.
Hence why there was some apprehension from the peers. We hear you loud and clear, but congratulate you. That is a huge milestone for women in engineering in this country. Let's bring in Chaltu. As you listen to the ladies talk about the challenges they've had to face, the things that they've had to hang on to see their success today, what does that bring to mind?
makes me have people to look up to. I mean, to learn from what they've had to go through, the challenges they faced, how they've actually managed to get along with them. And I'm really excited when I see Engineer Ogai is now the EBK CEO. So it really excites us. And I remember when we saw the postings, all of us were really posting it along. And I think the thing that can really help more young women come into engineering is that kind of support. I'll tell you for sure, Engineer Ogut here, Engineer Ogai have both been very supportive with lady engineers in the market, because if you see, the numbers are still low when it comes to lady engineers in the market right now. But seeing us, when we support each other, when we hold each other's hands, I believe today I'm here because of these two ladies actually, and I'm really excited for that. They've seen the kind of work you're doing, and just finding someone to applaud you, to tell you, hey, you're doing okay, hey, you can do this, you know, carry on the journey. It's really exciting, and I think that will bring many more lady engineers in the market. I know, I mean, I've seen ladies here on today, and I've seen the kind of work they are doing, and I'm really excited, and it also makes me want to do more. The same thing is what makes me, I know you said we're going to talk about mentorship also, but that is something I'm really passionate about, and it's the thing that makes me want to do more. You know, if I can be able to make one more lady just want to join, even just one, want to join engineering, I think that's a big win. And if we keep doing that, the ladies before us are holding our hands. I believe I have learned from that. I will hold the next ones after me, and the ones after that to keep on holding each other's hands. Back to the previous question you asked me, I know I said engineering is hard, but here I am today, got through that, and I'll tell you for sure that is one of the things that has helped me in my journey. It's just been 3 years, it's 3 years, 2018 to now it's 3 to 4 years since I finished engineering, but I'll tell you it has really molded me in my journey, even in my career. It's really given me the niche that I needed in order to be here today. So yes, I believe in holding each other's hands. Thank you.
Excellent. And we'll delve further into mentorship in a moment, right after the short break. But before you even take it, remember, we had asked you on our question of the day, what more needs to be done to actually recruit more women in the engineering space? That hashtag is a new normal. And remember, you can also reach us using the numbers at the bottom of your screen. Abel says, more grassroots engagements with young girls who would like to venture in the engineering field, changing their mentality that engineering is a man's world. Very true, Abel. Thank you. Kiki says, offer the courses in girls' schools. Have mentors in that field to visit the girls' schools, especially public schools, because private ones are already on it. Thank you, Kiki. Erastus says, we should help them fight the stereotype. True, and this has been alluded to in this conversation. Rispanjoki says, congratulations, Marta. Electrical engineering is not a joke. I'm in the same field too. A lot of sacrifice, hard work, and persistence. Rispa, we cheer you on, and we hope one day we shall sit with you here as we speak about your journey of conquering engineering and becoming one. We take a short break on Your World. We'll be back with much more from this brilliant women engineers.
Weka kolabo na Shell, shinda Fuso FI is back and bigger. Weka kolabo na Shell Fuels plus Shell Lubricants, Africa's Oshopata convenience shop. To enter the draw, dial *384*200#, enter the code from your voucher and follow the prompts. Terms and conditions.
Ni swala ambalo limetatiza mafisi wengi. Huenda ikawa anayepiga simu anataka kukula fea, ama msupa amejipa kiro safi. Nduru za kuaminika zimetufikia ya kwamba
to get more mafisi, dial *811*935#. Skiza na Nation.
NTV jioni, habari za kina, fasaha, tendeti na za kuaminika.
With all due respect.
COVID-19 crisis it's not just a health and economic crisis, but it's more also a corruption crisis.
Do as I say, not as I do, and the consequences of that then demonstrate that you put people at risk.
Was it necessary to hold the Madaraka Day celebrations in Kisumu County the way it did?
I don't think Madaraka Day celebration really had anything to do with the spiking with COVID-19. We really were never really prepared to deal with the pandemic.
Invest in the prime plots from Finca Properties Limited, Equator Gardens Nanyuki, a gated community ready for immediate development. We also have Konza Suburbs, a gated community within Konza Metropolis. For details, call us today. Finca Properties Limited, prime and affordable.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today we are celebrating the women in engineering ahead of the International Women in Engineering Day, which is marked on the 23rd of June. And in studio, we have Engineer Margaret Ogai, who is the CEO, Engineers Board of Kenya, Engineer Christine Ogut, who is the Chair, Women Engineers Chapter at the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, Martha Chaltu, who is a graduate engineer, joining us virtually, Dr. Gladys Chapter, who is an aerospace engineer, and of course, Makena Irere, who is a civil engineer. Ladies, again, we salute you on this journey. And before we went to break, we were talking about mentorship and what it takes to actually make it in this field. And I'll start off with you, Makena. You said you went to for further studies in the UK. When you think about your journey, right from high school, we're told you've got to be good in the sciences and all that. Was that a walk in the park for you, or you needed to pull up your socks to ensure that you got that grade to get into that university?
I guess it's not a walk in the park. I think math, physics, for few of us, it is an easy ride. But I did enjoy the subjects, and that made them easier to pursue, right? Because when you enjoy something, you sort of put in that extra effort because it's something that you want to keep doing. So that wasn't easy, but it was really enjoyable. And so then when I got accepted, I applied and I got accepted, and that was super exciting for me because I remember being so excited about going to a university, the exploration of the way an atom, kind of the orbits that particles take in an atom was discovered in Manchester. So learning all these things was really exciting for me. So yes, the path isn't easy, but I think it's possible. And also I would very much credit teachers who are interested in you, who are interested in the things that you care about, and who nurture that talent. I think that's so crucial. My physics teacher was amazing, and that also really did spur me. And she was a woman, actually. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but that was really kind of a spur also for me in terms of like excelling in those subjects.
But of course, the teacher had something, saw something in you to work with, so it was possible. Because some of us, I have to say, physics, I mean, the sciences, tuachane tu. That's why we're doing what we do today. The languages were our strength. Well, let me hear from Gladys. You were not top of your class, but you had a passion to get into this space. First of all, because you saw your brothers do all these things, and you really wanted to get to it. When you started the journey, fine. Primary school, high school, campus, where you are now with a PhD. Was it easy?
It wasn't easy. And I will speak to the mentorship aspect that you've already touched with the other panelists. And I would totally agree. And I normally like quoting the famous quote by Marian Wright, that you can't be what you can't see. And you have to see, and then that image goes in your mind. And that's when you start dreaming to be. And for me, my brothers were the people who I saw. And growing up in the same home state and seeing them pursuing engineering and doing well, then when it came to time for when it came time for me to choose engineering, I was sure it was something I could handle because I saw them handling it well. So I totally agree with the issue of mentorship, with the issue of representation and visibility, so that girls growing up can see someone who look like them, other women doing engineering, and then hopefully being mentored by other women, and then they grow into it. Because the journey isn't easy, and sometimes you want to lose hope. Sometimes you are the only woman in the room, or sometimes people doubt you. I think Engineer Guy had mentioned something about that, and it's fascinating. I thought it's gonna go with time, but it's fascinating to know that as long as you are a minority woman, the only woman in the field, or the one of the few, people will doubt you. And so, yeah, mentorship and having people to look up to. Definitely for me, it's been one of the things that, or one of the contributing factors that enabled me to get here.
Now, Marta, did it make sense, or did this happen for you where women engineers came to your school and spoke about their journeys? Did that actually spark the fire even further?
Yes, it did. Because I remember, so I was in Loreto High School, and we had, I don't think she was an aerospace engineering. I can't remember the exact engineering she was doing back then. But when she came in and talked to us and told us about their journey, and just seeing other women being in engineering, it's really a driving force. And even after joining engineering, I think my first 3 years, like I said, I even got a bit doubtful with myself. But just looking out there and seeing other women engineering doing this. And then I think just one more thing on that is yes, there are different engineerings, as you can hear today. I'm in electrical, Gladys is in aerospace, so there are different kinds of engineering. Yeah. I think the other thing is, as you get into engineering, please make sure you do a bit of research on what kind of engineering you're going to get to, what it entails, because I remember for me, I thought it's going to be a lot of maths. So at first it wasn't a lot of maths, but now when we got into 4th year, I got into energy, and I realized, wow, this is something I actually love. And that's what I'm actually even practicing right now. So what I can encourage young girls is make sure you do research on what kind of engineering you would best fit in, and you would best, like Engineer Guy said, find something that you'll actually love doing, because you'll actually do it better when you love it. So find the right engineering for you, do your research before you join into it, and then from there you will find women like all of us here who will be able to just guide you through.
I like you, Chalta. You're the student who became the teacher. We celebrate you. Now, let me hear from those who've been in this space longer, because getting into it, there were even fewer female engineers. And Engineer Ogut, when you walked into that space and everyone is looking at you wondering, really, of all the things you could choose to do, engineering, Jameni, how did you handle that?
Thank you very much, Gladys. My first employment was with the City Council of Nairobi. I didn't know anybody. And at that time, it was commissioners who were employing. I just applied for a job like anybody else, prayed about it, went for the interview. And I can tell you, one of the things I do when I go to interviews is I speak my mind, irrespective of what the consequences are. And that being able to speak my mind, I have a twin sister who is an engineer, and she also went for the same interview. And the commission had to make a decision between taking me or taking her. But because I was very bold and I could just answer questions the way they were asked without fear or favor, I was taken. So in terms of mentoring the girl child or women engineers, I want to tell the women there that there are very many opportunities. There are very many opportunities. Let us take a role model, Engineer Guy, who is on this show today. How many young girls are aspiring and saying, we wish we could get to where she is? So one of the things we look at in terms of mentorship is who are the role models? So the women engineers actually adopt girl child student engineers and hold their hands as role models so that we encourage them so that they can accept and face this challenging career. So for me, I was encouraged. I had a sister who was an engineer, senior than me, and she held my hand. But not only my sister, there are also male engineers who actually encouraged me and told me when I went wrong, they would actually call me and tell me, engineer, no, that is not right. So on the basis of that, we as women engineers, we have opportunities. And one of the things the Women Engineers chapter is doing to mentor the girls is that we hold programs with schools, take them through the process of how they can become engineers, the benefits, the opportunities. And I think that is one of the ways of also sharing best practice. Another way of mentoring the girl child or the women engineers is at conferences. We again have opportunity to show them our best practice. We give them opportunity also to come and talk so that they're more visible. Another thing we also do is we facilitate mentorship groups. There is a good mentorship group at Kenya National Highways Authority. They have a mentorship group that is encouraging the women engineers to grow from being graduate engineers to transition to become professional engineers. So we are going to have a summit, Women Engineer Summit, that is entitled Power of Diversity for Women Engineers in September this year. And one of the awards we are going to give for the first time in the history of engineering in Kenya is the best female mentor. And what that means is that we will be monitoring who has been mentoring how many engineers. Women engineers, we don't only have to mentor women engineers, but we can also mentor the male, the boy child, so that, and likewise, the male engineers also have opportunity to mentor the women engineers. So we work together to empower the girls. And one of the areas we also look at is issues of inspiring them, ensuring that they have networks that can actually support them so that at the end of the day, they can make a difference in the quality of life of Kenyans. And those opportunities are vast. Thank you.
All right, and we'll talk about those opportunities in a moment. Now, it's interesting that we talk about how you've got to sustain this career. Engineer Ogai being a CEO of EBK is no mean feat. It's one thing to be a female engineer. It's another to be in leadership. Who holds or who has been holding your hand?
Oh, thank you. I think I'll start. I still want to take that question on mentorship a little bit.
Okay.
So I'll start and say, my journey started, I think, when I was maybe 7 years old. And what was inspiring me was I want to be financially independent. I think I grew up in a very stable home, but I watched the power relations. And I could see who was calling the shots. And I also wanted to be in a position where I could be independent in what I decide, not for any other reason. So my father has also been a very big inspiration to me. He started with engineering, but because he didn't have the finances, he changed midstream to other courses. And so I would like to just to tell you that I think the seeds that are planted very, very early in our life. Fortunately, I also was doing very well in engineering, or rather in maths and English, maths, physics, and also English, actually. So I think that led me naturally until I got to the point where I did engineering. And I must say that Engineer Ogut's sister, older sister, who she mentioned, was also one of my inspiring models ahead, because she was 3 years ahead of us. That's the only living other woman in engineer that I knew at the time when I was growing, by the time when I was very, very, very young. So coming through this journey now to leadership, actually I would like to really credit the Institution of Engineers of Kenya through the Women Engineers chapter. I was very, very shy. In fact, my classmates themselves, they can't believe it. They're like, but Margaret, you are very, very quiet, just disciplined, but quiet. And I think as I joined the Women Engineers chapter, you can imagine where the entry point I came through was the Women Engineers chapter. I think we had a very good leadership there. And they started running all these programs. And with time, as Christine is saying, you start getting exposure, a bit of experience, a bit of networks, and what have you. Then finally, in terms of the leadership, that helped a lot in growing the bit about leadership, trying to look for resources for sponsorships and networking, and even coming here now. We had a lot of opportunities because of the Women Engineers chapter. Yes. That is on the side. But at the mainstream, as I was working, I've also been very fortunate that I've been fairly dedicated to the job. And so you go through the normal motions. I don't think there's any step I skipped. Rising through the ranks, really from the entry level, coming to middle management, coming to tier 2. And then fortunately, I have been very blessed that I am here, and I intend to use this platform to continue to inspire, to motivate women into leadership and into engineering space. And as I conclude, I would like to say that we are also looking as now very holistically, not just about the women engineers. Engineering, I think, is a catalyst for development. It can change society. And we are requesting, engineers in this country are requesting, we can support to bring up, transform lives at the very basic level, providing water, clean energy. That is our space, and we are ready, and we are looking at how we are going to contribute and support government so that at least we can lift more people out of poverty. I think sometimes we always see this engineering as something very complex, something done in Nairobi. We are also asking ourselves how we can come back and touch the lives at the very, very basic levels through these networks that we have. But for me, as I conclude, I have had, in fact, professional coaching, but I have had very, very good, faithful friends in the engineering space with me. And I think those have been my mentors.
So mentorship is very critical in this space. Now, remember, we have that question of the day to you. What more needs to be done to recruit more female engineers in this country? And that hashtag is a new normal. And I understand we have a question here. Rodney Douglas asks someone to be precise on a few engineering courses suitable for the girl child kindly. Now, I believe all the female folk here must be thinking, we do not have any that have a gender tag, but let me allow them to speak for themselves. Let me start off with Gladys, now that you're in aerospace engineering.
Oh, was his name Douglas?
Yes.
Douglas. whichever engineering field the girl is passionate about, she can do it. That's my take. Because I remember when I was planning to do mechanical engineering, I had all sorts of advice. And I think even personally, I don't think I knew exactly what mechanical engineering was all about. Because someone was asking me, why do you want to be a mechanic? So you'll be changing oil in cars. Because the people confused mechanic and mechanical engineer, right? So at some point I was scared. But hey, if I was to choose again, I would still choose mechanical engineering, because especially from undergrad and above, from bachelor's degree, it's more of design. It's more of using your brain and less of your energy. Yeah, once in a while, we had to file some methods in the workshop and carry some heavy stuff. But 95% of the work is in your brain, mathematics, design, and all that. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is personally, whatever the girl is passionate about, whichever field, aerospace, mechanical, electrical, civil, I wouldn't say, yeah, do not limit her.
Definitely. And it actually brings to the fore one of the questions I had for you. Does gender limit the field of specialty due to the logistics? Perhaps when you go to the field, you have to be up huge, you know, masts and all that. And I'd like to hear from McKenna. You are in the energy sector. How is that? And is it something that should make any girl shy away because of the work that goes into it physically?
No, absolutely not. And I really echo what Gladys is saying. There is no limit. There is no type of engineering you can't do as a girl, as a woman. You know, I was working in remote sites in, you know, deep in Scotland in my hard hats and boots, you know, climbing pylons. You know, you can do anything. And I think it's really driven by your interests, the things that make you excited, the things that make you want to kind of get out of bed in the morning. If you're a person who likes the outdoors, you might want to choose something that is, you know, to be a contractor, you know, and so focus more on the building itself rather than the designing. If you prefer to be in an office, you might want to consider something that has a little more design elements, so like a structural engineer. So I think it's about matching the engineering with your interests and with what you feel are your aptitudes, but any of them are open. I know I have friends who worked in offshore oil platforms, women, and you know, with all that people imagine an offshore oil platform could be and how male-dominated it can seem. I think all those things, and especially with kind of technology, with where we are, it's really anything is possible. And I never once felt limited by the fact that I was a woman in any of the jobs I'm doing. Right now, my job is more based in an office. With a little bit of field work, so I don't do the manual work that I used to do before. But I do kind of miss it actually. I do miss some of that, you know, hard and being outside all day, tinkering with concrete. That I miss it sometimes. But it's just to say that it really is about anything you can dream of, it's possible.
Now, it's interesting. Somebody heard that we were having this conversation and they said, women in this space normally have a certain look. I don't know if it's because of comfort or what the job comes with. And I'm glad we have all the female on here because what I see is a diversity in the looks. You know, we have those in dreads, those that are put together like engineer, you know, or good. And we have the ones with the braids and the dreadlocks and the short hair, Gladys. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, and let me bring in the young one in this one, Chaltu, you have dreads. Did you put on the dreads knowing that you are going into a field where perhaps you might not have the luxury of keeping your hair straight and looking nice and stuff like that?
Yes, that was definitely part of the reason why I did this, because being in engineering and also even the classes, we used to have classes from 7 to almost 7. While your colleagues are busy in campus, you find guys only had classes maybe twice or thrice in a week during the days. But for us, it was Monday to Friday, and you find even on weekends, you still have so much assignments that you need to look at. So it was the option of either I shave or I put dreadlocks. So I told my mom to see, and I have a lot of hair also. So mom, will I put dreadlocks or do I shave my hair? So my mom, being a Borana woman, she knew, but I am very adamant. So if I say I'm going to shave or it's going to be dreadlocks, it has to be one of the two, because if I actually shaved my hair back in high school, back in class 8, because I am the kind of person, if I want to focus on my studies, I want to focus on my work, and engineering is quite demanding, as all of us have confirmed. So yes, the hair had to find a way to be neutralized.
I like the word neutralized. Okay, I'm gearing towards this question, and I think I'll pose it to Engineer Ogut. They say when you get into this field, you've got to man up, you've got to be, you know, be very tough looking. Even when you walk into the spaces where the men are, they need to understand understand there's a strong woman who's walked in, but I look at you, you're feminine as it gets. Tell us the secret into this and why this is a myth.
Thank you, Gladys. Tough, I am. And why am I saying that I am tough? Because as an engineer, you have to make decisions. And these decisions have impacts on people's lives. You have to make a decision that you are going to do the right thing, you are going to follow the engineering ethics, you are going to build roads based on specific standards. Currently, I audit roads for safety. When I started as a civil engineer, I never knew that I would be looking at a scenario where I identify what are the risks on our roads, what is the potential impact of that risk, and arising from that, what are the countermeasures that I can propose as an engineer. And now when I talk about toughness, is that you are auditing what other engineers have done, and you have to point out, I can tell you, my fellow engineers do not like the idea that somebody is going through what they have done to pick out the issues. That they look at it and they shiver and they say, okay, engineer is tough, she knows her work, she is going to do it. When it comes to being tough as a woman engineer, you must work maybe 3 or 4 times what the male engineers are doing for them to actually recognize that, yes, that is a woman engineer. It takes courage, it takes boldness, it takes discipline, and of course, on top of all those, you must be an expert in your engineering field, and that is the only way you'll be able to stand out as somebody who is experienced and somebody who is bold, somebody people will look at and they say, yes, that engineer is somebody we'd admire to be. So I hope I am tough.
Well, you don't hope, you are, and you don't, it's not in the looks, it's actually what you've just tabulated. It's how you execute your job and of course the authority that you come with in the subject matter. And perhaps you can speak the same on Engineer Ogai on the leadership skills when it comes to this space, perhaps for those that are looking into getting into the same.
Oh, thank you. I think, like you say, I think I would like to just echo what Engineer Ogut has just said, Christine. You know, ultimately, it's about making decisions. It's about going to a space where you find it's male-dominated. There's a view that is not necessarily yours. And I think one of the things that in my previous position, I was told is I'm not persuasive enough. And that makes you, for you to have that persuasion, because you're really trying to change a perspective, and there's a decision to be made. And you tend to then do a little bit more research so that you can catch up. And I think we are very weak as women on the side. Let me see, myself, I'll not talk about other women. One of the weaknesses I noticed was that informal consultation. And I think that is, because you go to a meeting and probably you've done the technical work, you're aware about the technical issues, but there's this conversation that is happening behind the scenes. And that, I think, has been one of the learnings that I know as we, and that's why we have these spaces where we have the networks, because you start getting different perspective, because I think and the reason we go probably a little bit too fast in this direction is that we're trying to be very efficient. You have your whole other family and life that you want to live. So you'll find that you want to do your 8 to 5, very, put in a lot at that time. And sometimes it takes a coffee to unlock a certain issue. It's, you'd probably, in a very informal setting, talk with somebody and get that solution. Again, don't forget we have this, we are probably more isolated. You are the only woman in senior management. So it gets very difficult also to break down some barriers, to even form those networks that you need to form. But I believe everything takes a bit of time, confidence, persistence, and a lot of luck. I don't think we should. I mean, it's not always, there's no one formula. You'll not say that you'll follow this path and when you press this button, this will come out. And I think that needs to come out to all of us. Just be persistent, be imaginative in how we approach issues. And I think I would not re-emphasize, please get mentors. And when I mean mentors, I mean work very well with your, either your supervisors, form linkages that will support you as you do your work. Because quite often, as I think as all the rest have said, sometimes it just takes a phone call from somebody that I think you shouldn't do this or do it this way. And you get a totally different perspective, and you're able to make some very, very tough decisions.
And definitely this alludes to the impact we were talking about. And I think when we come back from this break, I'd like us to delve further into it, because there's a lot more that is being done behind the scenes, and just having a female eye into this makes a huge difference. But before I take that short break, we have Carol from Nairobi on the line. Carol, what's your question or comment?
Good morning. My name is Carol Lofafa. I'm an electrical engineer. And I'm so happy about the session you're having today. I look up to Engineer Good and all the engineers who are there. We know each other one way or another. But I wanted to know from their opinion, what do they think about the situation of quality of buildings that are being constructed or the bridges that are being constructed? Like yesterday, we had the Kangemi Bridge collapse. We had many different buildings within the city being falling down. We have problems with our engineering. So what is the opinion, and what do they think the role of the woman engineer is to ensure that we follow the ethics and standards to ensure our buildings and our bridges are okay and safe for you? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Carol. And we celebrate you even as we look forward to the International Women Engineering Day tomorrow. Thank you for calling in. And I think you allude to quality assurance, which is also coupled up with the impact. We'll be right back, and we shall have one of the engineers answer your question. We'll be right back.
Malaria ni ugonjwa hatari sana unaoua watu wengi hapa Kenya. Japo kuko na korona, hatari ya malaria bado iko. Mtoto huyu alikuwa na joto jingi, kutetemeka, kuumwa na viungo na uchovu. Alikimbizwa hospitali ya umma ambako sheria za COVID-19 huzingatiwa na ni salama kwa shughuli ya upimaji. Vipimo vilionyesha kuwa ana malaria, na papo hapo daktari akampa dawa za malaria na kumshauri azimalize, na ili kujikinga wawe wakilala ndani ya neti iliyotibiwa. Malaria husambazwa na mbu. Walio hatarini ni watoto wa chini ya miaka 5 na akina mama wajawazito. Kupimwa na kutibiwa ni bure katika hospitali zote za umma. Usisahau adui malaria. Zero malaria huanza na mimi. Chukua jukumu leo. Komesha malaria. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na Wizara ya Afya.
Fresh fried ginger has ginger oil, which is good for a healthy living lifestyle. It combines wonderfully on salads, stir fries, when basted on roasted meat, or simply sprinkled on your favorite dish. Now available in 250 ml, 500 ml, and 1 liter.
You know what? I've always been a hip-hop head. Like, I literally don't know how else other people are.
Just about 10 minutes until the top of the hour. That conversation continues for...
I was raised on MTV, then it turned into VH1, turned to Trace, Channel O, like, I've been through yo.
Channel O, yes, we have something in common.
So to clear up the air to a meaning, what's the meaning behind your phrase?
Tunaifanya leo si kesho.
Today na tomorrow. Leo.
Hata saa hii.
Jo. 5-8. Kwa nini kesho? Si kesho.
Acha kumisius kwa nini kesho. Hiyo ni heavy word. Hiyo ni heavy word yani.
Saa zingine sinanga mood. Upo ni mclean ni mpiwa guys like me wanakuanga fiwa.
Yummy. I know. Ni tamu. It's no surprise. The good quality baked bread from Bol A is festive good. Chukua yako moja leo.
NTV jioni, habari za kina, fasaha, tendeti na za kuaminika.
Invest in the prime plots from Finca Properties Limited, Equator Gardens Nanyuki, a gated community ready for immediate development. We also have Konza Suburbs, a gated community within Konza Metropolis. For details, call us today. Finca Properties Limited, prime and affordable.
Well, thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. Today I'm hosting female engineers ahead of the International Women in Engineering Day, having a wonderful conversation, one that is bound to inspire many other girls into this space. But before we get back to that conversation, let's take a look at the other world. Now, move over, Paul the Octopus. Thailand has a new claimant to the football forecasting crown, Boy the Psychic Lion, who has so far correctly called 4 Euro 2020 matches. Now, Boy, a 5-year-old white lion who lives at Azui in northeast Thailand, makes his predictions by grabbing meat marked with national flags from a wire above his pen. Now, his oracular exploits recall Paul the Octopus, the salty seer, who achieved global fame by correctly predicting 8 2010 World Cup matches from his aquarium in Germany. Boy has notched 4 successes in the first round of matches, including world champions and tournament favorites France clawing their way 1-0 past Germany last week. Well, time will tell. Now to health matters. 5 hospitals in the United Kingdom have installed new machines from a Cardiff-based company which melts items such as face masks, separating out impurities to make plastic blocks recycled into chairs, buckets or 3D printed items. The company that makes the devices says it feels amazing to be part of a solution to plastic waste that has skyrocketed due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
We've always known that face masks would be able to be recovered, but there was never the need at the time. The pandemic has obviously brought that to the forefront, which has made the type of technology that we've got even more important. So here we have the curtain melt, and what we'll be doing today is processing things like These are surgical tray wraps, polypropylene, that are used in every single hospital setting, operational setting, eye surgeries, day surgeries, and we literally just place them in the chamber like so. And of course, what we've got is the current blight on our environment, which is the face masks. In each process, we can process about 2,500 masks. The real factor is that each hospital is disposing of around about 10,000 masks a day, which is crazy. These machines can recover those masks, whereas at the moment they'll be going to alternative treatments, incineration, and maybe even landfill. We have the injection molding industry that will make school chairs, toolboxes, builders' buckets, pretty much anything, because it gets mixed with the other polymers. And again, they are all recyclable. Post-process of the machine, you get these 20-kilogram blocks of pure polypropylene. They are totally inert, sterile, and are ready to go to the onward, upward recycling industries. This in my hand is a prototype of a child cast. So instead of a gypsum cast, it can be 3D printed on site by their own plastic waste that one time would have been destroyed. Plastic doesn't have to be disposable. Certain plastics, most plastics, if not all plastics, are recoverable and reused. And knowing that we've got a part of that solution is amazing.
Well, when he left Senegal, risking his life to make the dangerous boat trip to Spain's Canary Islands, Lamine Sarr never thought he'd end up selling fake goods on the streets of Barcelona. Known as manteros after the blanket on which they lay their wares, these street sellers live a precarious life, always on the lookout for the police. So Sarr decided to do something different. He helped set up the Barcelona Street Vendors Union, which has just launched its own brand of trainers in the hope of changing the rules of the game. Behind the project is Top Manta, a clothing company set up in 2017 by the union, which is mostly made up of sub-Saharan Africans. Back to our conversation this morning, and before we went to break, we received a call from Carol, who is an electrical engineer, and she was talking about quality assurance and where women fall in this space and how they can be part of it, contributing in this space. And just to reference, just yesterday, and it's a story that's being followed up in our newsroom, is that 5 people were rescued alive when a retaining wall under construction near the Kangemi Bridge collapsed last evening. Now, this is according to the Dagoretti police, and rescue efforts were going on throughout the evening and into the night to ensure that they got everyone rescued out of the debris. And I know the Engineers Board of Kenya is a regulator of this space. You are the CEO, Engineer Ogai. When you see such constructions come down, we've seen buildings come down with people in them. What is the role of EBK, and how do you think perhaps having women in this space would help?
Oh, thank you so much. I'd like to start by thanking Carol for that very, very, very incisive question, because I think we have to, whatever engineering we do has to express itself finally in buildings. And unfortunately, it's very unfortunate. We have had recently a number of buildings which are collapsing or during construction. We've seen in the case of Kangemi, it was a road that was under construction, and that happened. Well, to me, it speaks to, we have standards. And that is what the regulator of engineering, the Engineers Board of Kenya, is there. We're there to, the standards that have been set, the regulations that have been set, to ensure they are followed when it comes to offering engineering services in this country. So this, of course, speaks to a failure in the system, right from the design, conception, all the way to delivery, to construction of that facility and its maintenance. So the failure could be anywhere along that space. And I would like to assure the public, because I'm here, that we have, I think the teams have moved in. Yesterday we had the National Construction Authority with the permanent secretary, with the principal secretary for public works. They went to the to the site that collapsed at where was it again?
Kangemi.
Not even Kangemi, the one before.
Kamukunji.
Kamukunji, sorry, at Kamukunji. Yeah. They're there, and we're there for collectively with them. We are coming up with a report to find out exactly along which the space. Where in our case of Engineers Board of Kenya, we want to find out, was that a professional engineer that offered that service? And therefore that would be a disciplinary case. But if it was not, it means there is an approval process which was not correctly followed. So there's a lot, and investigations are going on. It's the same thing we have at Kangemi. We have a preliminary report from Kenha, who are the authority and who are overseeing the construction work that was going on there. Failures, I think failures are unfortunate, and that is actually my appeal to give the engineers their space to be able to design buildings which are safe and secure and for public welfare. That is actually one of our tenets. As you start doing a design, we have to ensure that we have followed all the safety standards so that buildings are safe. Even when it comes to construction, we ensure that they are safe. But there have been some, I mean, these are showing us that along that whole system, there are some gaps, and we are trying to look at how to address those gaps. And one of the gaps that we have is that we are not also allowing professionals. We are not giving professionals these tasks to do. Sometimes we confuse a fundi with an engineer, quite often in the public, and we are going to try and you know, get perspectives coming right from the public. Who is an engineer? Who is authorized to do certain work? Okay. And we are going to carry it on from there. As women engineers, I think I'll bring it back to women. We've also had this, you know, when we see this, it is very painful when you find a family maybe will sleep in a cold because their buildings have come down. So it really hits on women quite hard. So what we are trying to do is, I think we are also going back and asking ourselves as women, as I said, how do we work with even the grassroots women so that we can see them improving their standards of living. The choices we make in terms of the cooking gas that we use or the energy sources that we use for cooking, they impact even on the health of our families. Yeah, we've seen if you choose kerosene, it could, you know, it has negative health impacts. So I think we want to do a bit more sensitization. I know we want to work closely with the industry as the Engineers Board of Kenya and some of our associations, professional associations, and also working across the boards with any stakeholders so that we can also get back the unique knowledge we have as engineers, coupled with us also being homemakers. How is it we can actually reach out to communities and bring solutions that are fairly simple? Yeah, like I'm saying, if it is water supply, I mean, we all know with COVID today, you need to have clean water that you can wash your hands often. But when we look at what is the water supply situation in Kenya, we are looking at, I think, more than 33%. 1/3 of our population does not have piped water or something like that. So we are trying to see how small interventions, even as we support government, can be able to help. And I think the fact that we are women we're going to bring that urgency into some of these very basic interventions.
All right, and talking about basic interventions, Chaltu, I understand that you're from a marginalized community. Is there a need that you saw that you needed to solve?
Yes, Gladys. So coming from a marginalized community, I come from Marsabit, and seeing as going home, most of the time you'll find that there's problem with waters, energy. So you find areas like Garissa, areas like Turkana. So finding energy is actually a problem, and you'll find if a generator goes off, for most of those areas, you'll find that they operate on generators. And if a generator has a problem, the system is taken back to Nairobi, and it can be even weeks or even months, leave alone weeks. It can be months before that energy is actually brought back to them. So I saw this need, and which is why I'm really excited about being in the energy sector, renewable energy sector, where we are giving alternative energy that is actually changing lives. We are working with projects even in places like Dadaab to bring water and sanitation into their systems with this renewable energy. So being able to solve this kind of problem and give back to society, help people from our community to be able to gain something as simple as energy. You are at home, most of us in Nairobi, when you are at home, something as simple as having a light bulb, is not a luxury that you think is something critical. But when you go back home and you find people not being able, kids want to study after school, but they don't even have lights to be able to just do that, to study. So being able to make an impact in that area is something that, yes, I'm really excited about, and which is why I joined engineering.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Gladys, I know you are also very passionate about giving back, and now that we're talking about the impact, yes, you might be in Massachusetts in the United States, but the impact of what you do is still being felt back here. Please talk about that.
Thank you, Gladys. Yeah. Coming from an environment where growing up as a girl, personally, I didn't have many women mentors to look up to. And so during my undergrad, we decided with some of my friends to form an organization. We registered it later, but the activities, mentorship and whatnot started when we were in undergrad. So the organization is registered as ILU, which in Kalenjin means shine. And we are just trying, so when we talked about our stories, sharing where we came from, starting from small beginnings, and somehow just making it up to where we are. And most of us, the leaders of the organization, we went out of Kenya to do postgrad. And we decided, in as much as we don't have strong financial muscle, we have strong stories that we can just go back there in our rural schools and say, hey, we started from here and we've gotten this far. And if you believe in yourself, try as much as possible to be persistent, you can get there. So that's what I'm trying to do through ILW, ilw.org.
Mm-hmm. And how do you impact these children?
We mostly focus on inspiration side of things. So whenever we have some people in Kenya who are helping us once in a while, but in as much as possible, whenever I'm in Kenya, I try to go back to most of those schools in where I come from and some other places, and just sharing the story, really. So the biggest aspect of ILU is inspiring students, and mostly women and girls. And then we are now trying to expand, and we are looking into exchange programs, and we want to facilitate exchange programs within East Africa. Now that we don't need to have a visa to travel to Uganda, to Tanzania, and just crossing the border. I realized it doesn't have to be to the UK, to the US, just crossing the border, it changes someone. And we are hoping to change and inspire and increase the scope of many students. So we are focusing on rolling to help women and girls, but it's gonna be open to students in Kenya. So anyway, that's just one of the initiatives that we are trying to expand into. But mostly we are focusing on inspiring students and helping them to unleash their potentials.
Very well said. So even as we bring this conversation to a close, which has been quite inspirational, let me hear from McKenna. You've been in this space 10 years plus now. Given a chance, would you do this again?
Absolutely. I mean, engineering is such a great foundation for so many careers. Careers in practicing exactly what you went to school for, like designing structures, which I did for those first 5 years. But it's even a platform to do so much more than that because of the skill sets that you get. You learn how to solve problems. You learn how to think critically. You learn how to be ethical in your approach to work. And I just love how we've been talking about quality assurance. So all these things like come into an engineering education. So it's really not just about the steel and concrete, the wires and the electricity, but it's also about kind of how to approach solving problems in the real world. And so as a foundation for really very many careers, and you'll see in many job applications for more senior posts, for posts that are sometimes don't seem as related to engineering. I mean, I manage research on off-grid appliances. It's not very much related to civil engineering, but it was a platform for that.
Oh my, we seem to have lost your connection, McKenna, but we'll get back to you in a moment. Gladys, let me give you the same opportunity. Given a chance, would you choose becoming an engineer?
Without a doubt, yes.
I love that.
It's been a, yeah, I'm certain. It's been a journey with challenges here and there, but for sure, it's been fulfilling. And absolutely, yes, I will do it again.
And perhaps your words of encouragement to the young minds that would like to follow in your footsteps.
Oh, for women and for girls, right now, engineering sector, I'm hoping in the near future, maybe in the next decade or next 2 decades, it will change. But we are still a minority, and I think as long as you are a minority in an environment, there will be challenges because of that. And so, number one advice would be, and I think Engineer Ogai had mentioned, you have to believe in yourself. There will be so many times that you will get unsolicited advice, people telling you can't make it. We've not seen someone like you, someone coming from that region. We've not seen a woman in such a position, and they will try and discourage you. And I think it's only self-belief that will take you far. So you've got to believe in what you trust, in your passion, and have that self-confidence, because most of the time it's not going to come from outside.
Okay, now, Charles, I know this sounds a bit obvious, but I'm going to pose the same question to you. If you were to do this again, would you end up where you are at?
Yes, I would definitely do, because engineering, as I said, is what has molded me into who I am today, and I'm very grateful for that. It wasn't easy, but it's been a journey, and it's been a very exciting journey as well. So, and just to add on that, maybe to encourage other young girls on that part, if you want to join engineering. I remember just the other day a friend of mine calling and saying, hey, I have a cousin of mine who wants to do engineering, and I'm telling her not to do it, because I'm looking at when you get into the market, there's still the challenge of getting a job after that. It's a tough journey. He was a classmate of mine, so it's like, I don't want my sister to go through this, but I can tell you something, as you get into the job market, because that's now they say, like Engineer Ogai said, we are here also to make a financial living out of this, better our lives and the lives of our society as well. So what I can say is, like I said, find an engineering that will be best suited for you, because I remember when I started working, I got into process engineering. I was basically looking at machines only, and I was miserable. So I love working with people, and what I decided, I really pushed our HR. I remember I went into her office so many times. She was like, you girl. So when they finally allowed me to get into solar, I produced results. I brought results which I told them I would be able to bring, because I saw I want to work with people, but I also want to do engineering. So I brought these two aspects together, and that has actually worked for me so well. I'm very grateful to God. So what I can say is, yes, I would do engineering over and over again. Just find your niche and make it work for you.
Very well said. Now, to those that have been in this space a bit longer, I'll start off with you, Engineer Ogut. Would you do it again?
Yes, Gladys, I would gladly do it again. Engineering has made me what I am today, an all-round person. It has made me accept my shortcomings and turn my weaknesses into strengths. It has made me understand that as an engineer, you have to stand for the right things, you have to be ethical, you have to follow the code of conduct, and at the end of the day, we make a difference. And in making that difference, you get that fulfillment that I have achieved. So I want to encourage all the young women out there, the young girls still in school, that engineering is so wide, it has so many opportunities, it is challenging, it's exciting, you got to be innovative. In our days, things were being done manually. These days, we talk about IT engineers. The sky is the limit, and engineering is the area to be. So as an engineer, I will always want to be an engineer, and I thank God for giving me that opportunity to serve Kenyans as an engineer. Thank you.
Very well said. Thank you. Now, before we hear from Engineer Ogai, remember we had asked you what more needs to be done to recruit more women in this space, and you're still talking to us. That hashtag is new normal. If we can have some of that feedback before we hear the closing remarks from Engineer Ogai. Ivy Gachanja says, encouraging young girls right from primary school to love science and math and ultimately STEM-related courses. Lady students in engineering should get women engineers as mentors to inspire them in their journey. Kudos to the REK for the work in mentorship. Thank you, Ivy. Another here from Winfred Mutinda. I'm so proud of you, fellow lady engineers. Indeed, engineering is a rewarding and fulfilling career for women. Let us continue inspiring and motivating more young girls to pursue STEM-related careers. Asante sana, Winfred, and we celebrate you too. Engineer Ogai, your parting shot.
Oh, thank you so much, Gladys. Where do I start?
Would you do this again? Let's start from there.
Yes, yes, yes. I would do it again. I think I would also want to be a bit real because I know a few of the ladies who look up to us tell us, you tell us engineering is fulfilling a career, but it's really, really tough on them. I know at 28 years, I almost made the choice to move from engineering and to go to become an oil marketer, which would also have been, I guess, fulfilling. I'd have been saying the same thing. But let me say this. It is a fulfilling career. It is very diverse in the decisions that we have to make. And perhaps more importantly, I look at myself and I say, how do I contribute? Because here we have we have Kenya, we have our country, and we are saying we want to have a high quality of life for all. So that to me is the enduring dream, that how do I contribute so that, these poverty levels that we have, we reduce them. And I know engineering is so practical. If you go to a village and there is no water, and tomorrow you've supplied water, you see lives change. So I think that, as everybody has said, is very, very fulfilling. The other thing is it's a lot of responsibility, so that all that we build also is safe and can be used by communities, by society. I would do it all over again. But I would always, my aim now, as I get towards the tail end of my career, is that to make it a path much smoother for the ones behind us. And as we've said, all of us, we are going to keep holding hands. We are going to keep, our visibility up there, so that even as we are few, we encourage each other. Yeah. And as I say to all the women behind us, all the young girls, please, if you're good in sciences, don't deny yourself. Take it up, it's a good career, and you will find your space within this very big myriad of issues. And I know we are going to see a difference in this country 10 years from today. We look forward to bringing you on board. Thank you.
Okay. Engineer Margaret Ogai, CEO Engineers Board of Kenya. I must say she is the first female CEO engineer at the EBK in leadership, and this is so commendable. Engineer Christina Good, Chair, Women Engineers Chapter at the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Martha Chaltu, Graduate Engineer. Dr. Gladys Gachanja, Aerospace Engineer, joining us all the way from Massachusetts in the US. And of course, Makena Irere, who is a civil engineer. Ladies, again, I salute you. And this we have done ahead of International Women in Engineering Day, which is marked tomorrow, the 23rd of June. I understand there are a lot of activities that will be going on in as far as marking this day is concerned. Whoever you are, wherever you are, as a female engineer, we salute you and we say kudos to you and we cheer you on. I know, as I've heard today, it's not an easy path, but it actually is fulfilling. Well, tomorrow we focus on those gearing up to turn 30. Yes, as you know, we have been shedding light on the hopes and fears that come with every age group, and going by your requests, a lot of people have concerns about turning the big 30. Why is this? Victor Kipkorir will be on the steering wheel from 7 a.m. to find out. So, see you then.